Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me okay?
Good morning.
Awesome. My name is Cindy Held and I work with KEXAC, and I will be kind of the moderator for this session today. And that session is We Know What We Are, but Not What We May Be, Shakespeare Behind Bars programs for at-risk youth. And we have our presenters, Curt Tofteland and Keith McGill, here with us today. We're happy to have them. And as you all probably know by now, you can open up the chat if you have any questions and put those over there. Or you can feel free to unmute yourself and speak up if you have a question. And feel free to email me or call me, and I will put my information in the message box, in the chat box, in just a second. And without further ado, I will turn it over to our presenters and we'll start the session.
Good morning. We're so happy to be here. We want to thank Katie for inviting us and for Cindy for being our moderator. All children are born innocent and uncorrupted, but some children are born into environments that are guilty and corrupted. As children age, they are shaped by the values of their birth environment, becoming mirrors of their childhood experiences. For children who find themselves contained within the boundaries of correction, their innate goodness lives deeply within them. Space must be created for that goodness to be called forth. Shakespeare Behind Bars was founded to assist the incarcerated in finding their authentic voices through an immersion experience in Shakespeare's original language, complex themes, and multiple meanings. I was once asked by a journalist, "How do you know you're successful?" My response was, they show up. It's a voluntary program. It's not mandatory. We would never have it any other way. And they show up. And then I was asked by the same journalist, "Well, what do you do?" I said, I teach children to play. The environments that they came from, play was not an option, or play was oftentimes with kids that we work with violent. Today I have with me Keith McGill, who is one of our lead facilitators in Kentucky. Keith's been a teaching artist with Shakespeare Behind Bars since 2012. He's facilitated programs for at-risk youth at Audubon Youth Development Center, Euspiritus, Maryhurst, Our Lady of Peace, Louisville Day, used to be called Louisville Day Treatment School, and most recently at the Fayette Regional Juvenile Detention Center, where we have had an ongoing yearly program funded by Arts for All Kentuckians. I'm Curt Tofteland. I'm the founder of Shakespeare Behind Bars. I've been working since 1995 in corrections as a prisoner practitioner. And we work with primarily what are classified as at-risk youth and adults who are white, black, brown, indigenous, people of color who identify their gender as masculine, feminine, or non-binary, as well as those who identify with the LGBTQ IP2SAA+, and I put the plus there because they keep adding initials, communities. So I'm going to turn this over to Keith, so Keith can share with you some of you may be familiar with the work that we do and may have even worked with Keith, but wanted to give him an opportunity to share some of the activities that he does and the experiences that he's had. And then we're going to show you a short documentary about a program that I work with in Chicago in one of the 4 juvenile facilities in the state of Illinois. And then we're going to open it up quickly to questions. So Keith, my brother, please share.
Good morning, Curt. Good morning, everybody. I echo what Curt said. Thank you all so much for inviting us, for being here. Zoom is not everybody's favorite thing, but the great thing about Zoom is that we can all be together from all these different places at the same time. And it's wonderful in that respect. The rest, not so much, but we can all hang out here in your living room. I'm in my kitchen trying to hide the light switch with my head. So this is the time in which we live. So just to talk about my role in Shakespeare Behind Bars, it started with juveniles. I've since also started facilitating in some adult facilities, but it started with juveniles. And it started with juveniles in the justice system. And it started with juveniles in the justice system for whom school and reading and English was not their favorite thing or anything that they were trying to touch. So when I tell people I do Shakespeare with young incarcerated people, they go, do they like that? And I say, eventually, yes. But all of us have a hang up about Shakespeare. You say the word Shakespeare and people start to tremble and get nervous. And, oh, I was supposed to read that in high school and I didn't. And I don't know the story of anything. And that's absolutely okay. And that's what I tell the young people. We don't start with the really hard words. We don't start with the history of England. And we don't start with, all of the heady stuff that really isn't relevant unless you're a scholar, unless you're heavily into it. We start with the story. So I don't come in and I say, read the story about these people who did this thing. I say, okay, so there's this guy with his friend and they just got back from battle. And there's these witches who say one guy's going to be king. And the other guy's like kind of upset that he doesn't get to be king. So it's like, dude, why am I not king? Tell me something. It's like, well, you won't be king, but your kids will be king. Like, what does that even mean? And then the one guy tells his wife and she's like, that's great. It's when you be king, when the king dies. And she's all, well, let's kill the king. That'd be great. He's like, we cannot kill the king. Like, he's my cousin. He's a really cool dude. And he's giving me stuff like, what? Oh, he's some kind of coward. It's like, well, I'll show you. And then they kill the king. And then everything seems great, but it isn't, because now he's like, oh, wait, my best friend's supposed to be king. So I have to kill my best friend. Oh, wait. And then she said, beware these other guys. So I have to be, and then it just snowballs. And all of a sudden he's made all these decisions he didn't mean to make because he listened to the wrong person who he thought he could trust, and then realized that they were out for their own thing. And isn't that awful? Like, yeah. Right. And I say, that's Macbeth. Like, what? Yeah, that's Shakespeare. I just told you Shakespeare. No, man, that happened to me. Like, this dude was telling me I was supposed to like hang with him. And he said, if you don't do it, you ain't my friend. You ain't down. What's up? So I think we should do this thing. And I won't do it, but like, I want to be down, and then I did it. And then he's all, what you do, man? I didn't ask you to do that. That's all you, right? So we start with the story. And then we read the actual story, and it makes sense. If you start with just read these words, you get stuck in the words. So once we get to the story, then we say, what is, first we say, like, what is Shakespeare, what is Macbeth, and what is Lady Macbeth going through? It's like, well, she wants something, but she can't really do it, but she got to get him to do it. And then he does, and then he's all freaked out. She tries to tell him to calm down and be cool, but then she's not that cool. I said, okay, so those are their emotions. Have you ever felt like that? And say, yeah, well, I sort of felt like that when this happened and that happened and this happened. And then we go from this big, heady, 400 some odd year old thing to this is what happened to me to get me sitting here in front of you today. And to me, that's what Shakespeare Behind Bars does. Shakespeare Behind Bars is using something that is removed from you to get to that which is you. And I didn't even realize until Curt said it, because I can never remember how long I've done anything, that for 10 years, evidently, I have been able to do that. I've been able to do that in one session with a group of people. I've been able to do that in a residency that lasts a few months. We just kind of play with scenes, or we'll end up doing a whole play or whatever that is. But the thing that is the biggest philosophy of Shakespeare Behind Bars is that the noble attempt. It's a phrase that Curt uses all the time. Give it a shot. And the other thing I say is that you can't get this wrong. As long as you're telling the truth, you can't get this wrong. Right? So if you think it's Macbeth's fault that all this happened, okay, that's a part of the picture. If you think it's Lady Macbeth's fault, that's a part of the picture. If you think it's the witch's fault, just trying to play with, mortal people, that's part of the picture. Whose side are you on? Where do you look at it? And then being able to take this and apply it to your life. Have you ever been in a situation where you have a really good friend, but it's like for the good of everybody, that person has to be voted out, or in Brutus's case, stabbed. We got to get rid of Caesar. I think I'm doing a really good thing in getting rid of Caesar. And then we have to look at Brutus and we have to be like, are you really Brutus? Because when you kill this guy, you're in charge. No, but I'm doing it for the state. Okay, if you say so. Right. So we have to look at all of these things. And the great thing about Shakespeare is that he'll write so that he doesn't get in any trouble with whatever monarch's in charge, but he'll sneak stuff in. Right. So he'll write Merchant of Venice and say, the Jews, aren't they awful? They certainly are. He certainly got his. But then he puts this big speech in the middle about, why are you picking on me? The only reason you're picking on me and being horrible to me is because I'm Jewish, and that's it. This is awful. And he gets this huge monologue to say that in the middle of this play where the Christians eventually triumph, in a country where the Christians have triumphed, where Christianity is the norm throughout the entire continent. But in the middle of it, he says, if you're listening, this is a horrible thing to do. So then we can take something from that and say, have you persecuted somebody just because they were female, just because they were younger or older or Black or gay or, quiet? So the thing about it is that being able to go into a room full of young men and women and say, we're going to do Shakespeare, and hopefully you'll find out something about yourself while we're doing Shakespeare, is probably one of the most gratifying things I get to do in this teaching career that I've chosen. It's various, freelance teaching career that I've chosen. And the big thing we want them to really get out of it is, just like these characters in these plays had a choice, they had a moment, they had a crossroads, they could have changed any of the tragedies you look at, they could have changed their minds. They could have made a new choice. Even when it looked like, I'm really in far, there was always a chance to turn around and pull out, to turn around and say, nope, not this time, right? And so we want, honestly, if nothing else happens, like, I'm not trying to be Sidney Poitier and To Sir with Love or Michelle Pfeiffer in, Dangerous Minds, where suddenly I'm a teacher for a year and your life is spun around. No, it's not going to work that way. But I would like to drop a seed and say, think about your life and your choices. It wasn't the teacher who got you in trouble. It wasn't the judge who gave you a sentence. It wasn't the person who ratted you out, as it were, right? If he had run faster, if he had known how to drive, if he had told me the cops were coming, if I had not chosen to be there, none of this would have happened, right? And now, as a youth, you can make a new choice. So just like these characters that we can talk about kind of objectively, and then it leads into the subject of talking about yourself, you can make a choice. And theater's fun. Acting is fun. Being somebody else for an hour is fun, especially if you're incarcerated. Because what I find mostly, and if you've dealt with young people who are incarcerated, is that they are bored out of their minds. Because for most of the time, there's nothing to do. And so I come in and I'll be like, all right, well, you can hang out with me for an hour. We can be goofy and ridiculous, and we can play games, and we can be different people, and we can rewrite stuff, and we can talk about stuff. And eventually, like Curt said, they come back. Because I come back, which is huge, which is one of the biggest things, one of the biggest surprises I found, is that they are so surprised when you come back. And sometimes that's all it takes. It's like, oh, he kept his promise. Right. And so then they're willing to keep a promise to you. It's like, all right, Mr. Keefe, I'll try this. You came back, I'm going to try it. So Curt has a documentary about Shakespeare Behind Bars that he'll talk about a little bit before we show it to you.
Thanks, Keith. As Keith so eloquently said, it is, we use Shakespeare as a vehicle. It's just a vehicle to get. It's our passion. We love Shakespeare. We love his stories, and so that's you. As you all know, if you teach from your passion, there's greater success. But it's a vehicle, and you can tell, Keith is an amazing facilitator because he has such deep empathy and compassion and humor with which the students can identify. He cares about them. And his statement about they show up because we show up is so true, no matter what, we show up. So Cindy's gonna do the technology for us. This is a program called, it was created during COVID when we were locked out of the facility and had to teach on Zoom. So I'm sure many of you have had that experience, and we failed and failed and failed, and we learned through our failures. But I had to totally rewrite the pedagogy and the curriculum. And it's called Shakespeare, Spoken Word, and Hip Hop. And this is a documentary shot from last year's program. Again, if you have questions, you can certainly ask them once we get through, and you can turn your mute off and pop on. We love that. But if something occurs to you, write it in the chat, and then we'll get to those too. So thank you. Cindy.
Please give me just a minute. I have to go into my system settings and allow permissions for it to share.
Yes.
On stage, there's a MC element to it.
The third collaboration of the Illinois Youth Center and Shakespeare Behind Bars faced some of their toughest challenges since its inception. From the global pandemic, changing guidelines at the facility, and a need to keep everyone safe, it was difficult to develop engaging programming for the youth.
One of the feedbacks we got from the older guys is they were bored, and we didn't get that. Sunday was like being in the writer's room. It was like a writing salon. Certain of the members were sharing their original stuff, and then they got into freestyle, and I think it was 4 of the guys were taking different verses and kicking it to another one who would freestyle on that. So a lot of positive energy in the room with that. But then we hear feedback that says, well, they're still bored. Again, what does that mean? How do you unpack that?
Struggling to fight boredom, a new approach was needed to reach the students.
And I think that's best if we just do it one-on-one for maybe 10 minutes apiece,
So you just want to bring one youth at a time?
Yeah, I think so.
Now that you've seen it, now what you know what I do and sort of what I'm trying to bring, is there any type of expectation you would want from this? Not me specific, but I think like some of the residents are like they want more understanding like about like what some of the stuff mean. In terms of performing rap, you feel comfortable when we was in the cypher just going back and forth and stuff like that? Yeah. Mad fun. How's the writing been going? Because I know you wasn't like, you said you wasn't a writer like that when you started.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's kind of hard because I'm not a writer, so it's kind of hard of like making a song or like you know what I'm saying, like be coming up with lyrics type thing. You know?
Do you ever feel like you have to censor yourself, or you just say whatever you feel?
I say whatever comes to my mom, and if it don't sound, I'll say it again. I'll be thinking, and I'll find something that go with it, and I'll write that down. Like I'll be writing the music sometimes. I don't want to be freestyle. And then, like, I'll write the first verse and the second verse, I'll just freestyle, and I'll be like, oh, that shit, these I'll re-say it, and I'll write it down.
Okay. We want y'all to try to share yourself, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, how often do you write, like, even before this?
Like, almost every night, I try to.
How was the writing going without the beats the first few times?
I mean, I guess it was easier, because they don't got no, like, lyric, so no beats. But now, since I got a beat, it's kind of harder, because, like, I gotta find the rhythm, you know, and I gotta see, you know, just go with the flow and actually just make sure my lyrics rhyme with the, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, so it's a lot to it.
Everybody got their method. There's some songs I write to a beat, some songs I write and then find the beat.
The recording aspect to the program was incorporated, so youth would have something physical they could take home upon release.
Hello. Loyalty and loyalty, bro treat me like royalty. All I ask for honesty, and when I die, just honor me. I wrote this like poetry. I sit back and smoke a tree. I can't speak on all your guys, but I know bro gon' blow for me.
It's to be or not to be. I move like Monopoly.
I'm so different with my legs. Say that's why they copy me.
And they use it properly when they use my property. That is why I shout out all the family that rock with me.
Loyalty and loyalties, loyalty and loyalties, loyalty and loyalties. Bro treat me like royalty. All I ask for honesty, and when I die, just honor me. I wrote this like poetry. I sit back and smoke a tree. I can't speak for all your guys, but I know bro gon' blow for me. Loyalty and loyalties, bro treat me like royalty. All I ask for honesty, and when I die, just honor me. I wrote this like poetry. I sit back and smoke a tree. I can't speak for all your guys, but I know bro gon' blow for me. It's to be or not to be. I look like Monopoly. I'm so nigga with my legs out of there and copy me.
After the one-on-one sessions, the students came back together and immediately connected with the idea of recording their personal projects. They developed spoken word pieces and songs they could take home, something they could take pride in.
My man saying it's not good that everybody knows your names, no privacy. I want to know what's your measure of fame. How do you know you made it?
You know, I want it to be known. I want everybody to, you know, recognize me, know who I am, let them know, like, you can really do this. Like, a broke in the hood could really make it out and be somebody, you know?
What made you not want to be famous anymore?
Because I thought about it. I was like, I don't like what fame comes with, you know? Like, if I'm famous, like, I got a lot of targets behind me, you know?
This edition re-engaged the students and allowed them to be open not only to Shakespeare, but the themes in his writing, such as loyalty, family, and fame. All concepts that students gravitated to and experiences they could relate to and write about. There were typical setbacks, such as programming conflicts with daily routines, or managing the emotional state of the students and the hardship that comes with being incarcerated. Yet, the students brought forth and spoke with an honesty and truth about their lives and experiences and looked forward to a more creative future upon their release.
I just, I'm just self-taught, to be honest. So, like, they teach me, but, like, I put it into my own words and I make it my own, you know?
Mom, I'm sorry, ain't the man I was supposed to be. All this pain in my hurting grandma, you keep blessing me. Had a talent on the beat, so I'ma let it speak. Same person locked up in my face, don't hate on me. Locked up in the cell, it ain't the place to be. Used to read the Bible, thinking spiritually. Next rapper, headed to the top, to the industry. Mom, I'm sorry for what I put her through. I'ma get these buildings, spit these lyrics in the booth. I was a hard head, growing up, ain't know what to do. A lot of people call me dumb. I was young in the hood, had to fight my whole life. Really gotta play the pro, gotta keep your head above water. That's what I was ready to do. All the tears in my eyes when you hear this song that's gonna make you cry. Growing up, I seen a lot of people die. It's a lot of people talking. It's a lot of jealousy. My mom sorry ain't the man I was supposed to be. My mom sorry ain't the man I was supposed to be. My mom sorry ain't the man I was supposed to be.
The 10-week program gave the students a chance to think about their futures and how writing and creativity could influence their lives. With the support of IYC staff and encouragement from the Shakespeare Behind Bars team, many wanted to continue to use their skills as a way to cope and express themselves.
Yeah, like that's my passion. Like I plan on coming home and putting like a lot of hard work and dedication into this. So this is something I really want to do. And I know it's going to cost, but it's a consequence behind everything. So I know it's going to cost, but sometimes, I mean, you got to pay. You got to pay what needs to be paid to become what you want to be.
This basically life through my eyes. Church is getting real, to my brother pass the pill. Through the dash, realize you ain't had a will. Smoking wood, now I'm willing with a till. Late nights on the avenue without my steel. Late nights. I had to tell him. Church is getting real, told my brother pass the pill. You ain't never do this dash, realize you ain't had a will. Pop a bottle, smoke a wood, now I'm bullin' with a till. Late nights on the avenue without my steel. Pocket rocket poppin' if a out of pocket. Can't imagine your knocking with your kid, you just for talking. I just cracked the pint, no with no soda, I still raw. I just thought about fate before I crown this my dog.
My people at the ghetto, I don't wanna live this life. I tried to crack a pint, I had to pour with no ice. Late nights on the block, I had to look out for the ops. We kept in that block, we on that couch with some shots.
When I'm writing, I just write about my life, trying to express myself, because I don't get to talk about it in life. So I'm gonna write in my notebook, try to turn it to a song so people can understand what I'm saying. It got lonely in them cells that night. It had me thinking. I see my life flash before my eyes, I started blinking. I jumped up in that water too early, I got to sinking. I take this for the pain that helped me fight the demons. Every since that I tried it, ain't gonna lie, had me fainting. Died out of nowhere and I couldn't believe it. That ain't for real at all, thought I was dreaming. I stamped his name up on me, I swear that it got a meaning. I've been through hard times in my life, but I gotta move on. Thinking about my brothers forever, they gone for too long. Mama told me hold it together, baby, just keep on.
It's like it's a group. It's like it's not like normal groups. It's like a group of like if you going through some stuff, you can get it out, you know. Like write something for the group or for yourself, and, you know, like basically you can dedicate stuff to yourself, to other people, you know, stuff like that, and like really write poems, really music, you know, stuff that like you really care about. Basically send a message to my people to make sure they like hear something that's like they can take inside and actually look forward to it and do something with it, and, like through their talent and stuff. Love unspoken is love that you can't see, but sometimes it make you think who you can see and what type of feeling you want it to be. Ask yourself, who's down the ride? I can't leave my friends behind. Just step aside, ask yourself why. Be true to yourself, always love yourself. Somebody is always watching. Look up, look down. You always see my smile. Power in myself. People always tell me don't look down. People see me writing verses. I'm the king in my city. Now tell me, is it worth it?
Graduating is the key to success. And once I graduated, I seen that I opened more doors for myself for success. I can be better in life with more knowledge and power. I mean, I feel like I made my people, I'm proud. Because I know that everybody, some people where I'm from, like how we grew up, not everybody made it to graduate. I can't concentrate. Too many thoughts going through my brain, it's hard to hold on. Committed a lot of crimes, but I can't say. If you my brother, then stay real, don't want to see you fall. I swear to God, I get on my knees and I pray. For every single rule I broke and I swear I was wrong. Mama, I'm sorry, I regret being in this case. Tears falling from my eyes because my homie gone. Tell all my people that I'm going through all this pain. Think about them nights when we was clutching on that chrome. Now I'm in a cell reminiscing about them days when you lose a soldier in that war, yeah, that hurt the heart. For all my brothers who gon' slide, I gotta pray. I was down but on my ass, I ain't had none at all. Holy shoes and runny nose, y'all can't relate. I was gonna make it in this for playing basketball.
This season of Shakespeare Behind Bars would not have been possible without the ongoing support of the IYC staff and Assistant Superintendent of Programs, Michael Bird, who continued to challenge the young men to be the best version of themselves. It is the hope that the program will continue to inspire, uplift, and encourage the young men at the Illinois Youth Center, Chicago.
Thank you, Cindy, for being our technologist. I like to minimize my glitches, so I appreciate you handling that for us. So we'll open this up to what do you want to know? That's what we're really interested in, is what questions do you have? And if you want to just unmute yourself and speak, that would be great.
Okay, everybody, one at a time, please. So Curt, I'd never seen this before while we're waiting on people to formulate their questions. I'd never seen this before. This is brilliant and wonderful. I did notice in the chat that Javon had written, I would like to incorporate recording as a next step. What were the logistics of that?
So I'm very, very fortunate to work with a filmmaker, Chicago, born and raised, and went to the Art Institute and has his MFA in filmmaking and has made some amazing documentaries. And I was introduced to him because he had been to IYC and had done some work. And Michael, who is our program manager and our first report to within the institutions, sent me a text and said, "Hey, I like to partner people up, and I think you guys like each other." And so he connected us, and I looked at Jason's documentaries and had long conversations with him and invited him. This was during COVID, so we're looking for anything that can engage the youth. And Michael was cleared. They were on lockdown, but Michael was cleared, like the staff was cleared, and he lived in Chicago. Devon, who's the facilitator, the hip hop artist, and was living in Brooklyn. He now lives in Chicago, and I was in Western Michigan. So they gave him permission to go over, and he started recording. So we did a short documentary, a collective about that work. But what we observed was it just raised the stakes in the room, you know, that the boys were being recorded, so their efforts went up, and then we could show them and talk to them about things we wanted them to work on because it was right in front of them. And part of it is performance, and part of it is clarity of speech. And I mean, we write the subtext on the screen because they go so fast. A lot of times my ears can't follow them and stuff, and we know that's true. So we put the captions, the closed captions up so that people can follow it a lot easier for this second. And we're going to start a program again in September, and the same team will be back. Devon being our hip hop artist, and the Sonnet Man, the Shakespeare Sonnet Man, where he takes Shakespeare sonnet and he turns them into inspiration to write and reflect on. And then Jason will be in the room, and Jason's very engaged with the boys too. And so again, the stakes just went up, and a lot of the issues that we were facing with keeping them engaged were solved because we created, and this is, you know, the logistics are difficult because you're dragging the film tools in, the lights, the mics, the camera, you know, and all of that gets on Jason's back, and we lug it in and we set it up. But we set up a recording studio. In one room we had a sound booth, and in the other room we had a camera and sound, and so we could go back and forth, and it gives us a great tool when we go back this fall. We'll have a new batch of boys because rarely do they carry over. They've gone home or been moved to another facility. So we're always starting from scratch again. But when we can put up on the screen for them to see, this is where we're going, guys. This is all about you. It's not about us. We're using Shakespeare as a tool. We use Tupac's book of poetry as a tool. And it's all about inspiring them to write about their life and write about their emotional connections and what they're going through. And as you can see in the piece, there's a lot of stuff that's redacted. And of course, this is where, if you're an administrator, this is where you get in the way of your facilitators who understand what the world that these youth are coming from is all about. And sometimes, and we want them to be honest about it, and sometimes that includes expletives, right? But, you know, administrators don't want the legislators to see this and see that, you know, oh, you're advocating for them to do this stuff. So it took us 6 months to get this finally approved, and it went all the way to the top, to the head of the juvenile corrections in Illinois, and maybe even beyond her. But it's about knowing what the box that you put in and then doing the best you can to be creative and to get it done. So what we do encourage the boys to do is find another word. Is there another way to say that? You know, like that's why we use Shakespeare, because his vocabulary is so vast and the meaning of his words. And that's what really captures them is, oh, he means this? Wow. And it broadens their vocabulary, and they begin thinking about that in their own work, which I think you see the result in the young men that are sharing their work and are proud of their work and are able to take. We got approval for them that when they leave the facility, they can take their work home on a thumbnail and be able to share it with their family and with their friends. And so it's just changed everything with engagement much quicker. But the logistics are, you know, everything has to come in and be inspected. But one of our hallmarks is we build a trust with the institutions that we work in. We've worked in the adult prison in LaGrange, which is outside of Louisville, for 27 years. And that's multiple administrations, different wardens, different governors, different, all of that. And the reason that, because usually when a new warden comes in, everything gets kicked out and there's a new sheriff in town and we're going to do it my way. But what they realize is that we are trustworthy. We care deeply about coming in and doing this work. We're choosing to do this work, and we are in your house. One of the reasons I attribute to my success of working in corrections for over 27 years now is the fact that I go in as a guest in their house, even though I've been there for a long time. And I just say, what are the rules? Tell me what the rules are, because I don't want to break the rules. I want to play in the sandbox, but I want to be able to do the work.
So that's interesting because Chris Gilkey had put a question in the chat. Do you find it more beneficial to let the students express themselves freely? We try to censor the profanity and drug talk with our kids. I'm just interested in your opinion on that. So Curt talked a little bit about that. I will look at the flip of the coin in that. And I think what you were saying, Curt, toward the end was that we're in their house.
That's right.
So for this particular documentary, I think it was important because it's outside of a regular residency or even an adult residency. Adults can say what adults say. I think if we go into, like I know when I went into Fayette, it was literally, I ask, and every time I go into a facility, into a school, I say, what are the rules here? So that the students don't think, oh, KAES here, we can do what we want to. Like, no, the rules that were here when I got here are still the rules while I'm sitting here, because they'll still be the rules when I leave. So consequences for whatever will be those same consequences if I'm sitting here or not. I'm not here to be like a get out of, no pun intended, get out of jail free card. So we do encourage honesty. We do encourage free expression. We also discourage talking. It depends on the institution. Some institutions I've been in, the language flows and they say what they say, what they say. The hard and fast is always, we're not talking about anything you've done. We're not talking about anything anyone else has done. We're not talking about your crime in any way. So, because if you're an adult, that's it's your right and you can talk about as much as you want to. As a juvenile, it's just, there's a certain place we have to go to. So it's like, I'm not going to sit here and you're not going to rehash what you've taught, how you got here and what the circumstances of that are. You can talk about the crime, quote unquote, and how you feel about that, what that's done to you, what you're thinking about, how you can change it so that whatever crime doesn't happen again. Also, with the writing, I always say, write whatever it is. And then like Curt says, like, okay, so this is probably going to be problematic. Is there another way to say this that is not problematic, but still says what you wanted to say? Because there is a language, there is a vernacular, and we have to honor that vernacular. I learn new vocabulary every time I go into an institution. Urban Dictionary and I are such good friends right now. Because I will say, like, I don't know what that means. Tell me what that means. And they'll tell me oh, okay, I get it now.
It's also about, we're not there to censure them. We are there to try to understand where they're coming from. And the circle of Shakespeare behind bars, circle of truth, I used to call it trust. And then over COVID, I began to delve in, well, what does trust mean? And, there's so little trust. And so I moved it to truth, because truth is something that we can all seek. But every truth, you got 16 people in the room, there are 16 truths in the room, but I'm interested in your truth. So it's a place where I, as a broken human being, can join in a community with other broken human beings to explore what it means to be human. And in this circle of truth community, I don't have to suffer alone. I can sit on the rim of the circle and simply be broken until I decide I'm ready to begin my journey into wholeness. And sitting in the circle of truth, there's always invitation, never invasion, and always opportunity and never demand. So we have to get something down on paper to begin to work. And those of you that teach writing know, or who are writers know, that it's not about writing, it's about rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. And we use Shakespeare as an example of that. And it's all about, the question is tomorrow, can I tell a deeper truth than I told today? So we don't use language as adults. I write right alongside them. I'm a spoken word poet, and I've written poetry since third grade, which was a long time ago. And I write right beside them. And then I'm asked, because I'm writing right beside them, to say, Mr. Curt, will you share your piece? And I share my piece. And it's usually, I write at least one piece, sometimes two, sometimes three, about the youth in the room. And it comes from what I hear them saying and what they're revealing to me. And I write about them. And of course, they love that because I'm focusing on them. But then when I read it again, a week later, I've rewritten some pieces, and they'll say, well, oh, you changed that. Why did you change it? Because I felt this could be clearer. So I'm working as a living, working writer right beside them. Devon is a working writer, and he writes pieces and shares pieces and talks to them about where this piece came from and how long ago he wrote it, and it's still with him, still in his journal. So I hope that answers your question. I classify myself as the quiet anarchist. I am in there, and I'm an anarchist because with the rules and regs stuff, they have to be followed. But we're talking about what it means to be human. And that's what we tried to get at. And then we comply with all of the rules and regulations of the institution. But again, it comes through gaining trust. They I don't pull any punches when the head of the DOJ is there. When she's sitting in the room, I'm going to be as honest and truthful with her and witnessing this as I am with the guys, because I don't want them to see me adapt myself to that. So, and she has never stopped us or never pulled us aside afterwards, because you feel the humanness that's in the room. You feel the boys opening themselves up and being vulnerable, and she's our greatest supporter from the top down.
I want to, if I could, get to some more folks in the chat. Melanie it scrolled down on me. Melanie had said, I love the video. I'm interested in the program. I think my high school students would enjoy this. I teach at the alternative school in Warren County, which I'm going to interpret as, and Melanie, you can unmute and correct me, but I'm interpreting that as students who I imagine are trying to make the transition back into traditional school from having been incarcerated or having missed school for whatever reason, having been in the justice system. I'm assuming that. I have done this with, like Curt was saying, I've done this with all types of programs. I've done it that's what Audubon at Louisville Day School that Curt mentioned earlier. Louisville Day School is an alternative school. So I've done it with alternative schools. I've done it with students who are working on their mental health, students who have been marginalized because either their environment was toxic for them, or they were not quite adjusting to their own environment and sort of needed help to adjust themselves and figure out who they are. So I've been in several environments. So in alternative schools would be a great place to do that, because again, especially it's even more on the precipice of, are we going to see you? Are you going to go back the other way through the system? And so using Shakes as a tool to say, okay, you don't have to do this. You never have to go through this channel again.
Yes, sorry, it took me a minute to figure out how to unmute.
No, it's fine.
I do teach this, the program that I'm in is long-term. So I thought this would be fabulous. I usually have a lot of girls. So I think it would be really cool to see from that aspect, to try it with them, because I think they would love it.
There is a program called Maryhurst, which is all girls here in Louisville. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because when I teach it, I don't go, these are the girl scenes and these are the boy scenes. I just teach scenes.
Okay.
So a young man might be Portia trying to get Brutus to tell her the truth about why these guys are coming over to my house at 3 o'clock in the morning. And why won't you tell me? I'm a woman, but I'm a pretty strong woman. Or I'll have a young woman do the speech from Henry V, where, it's talk about band of brothers. It's like, guys, we can do this. I know there's a lot of them and not a lot of us, but if we work together, we can do this, right? So I don't see, certainly it is gendered generally, but I think we're trying to move away from the fact that, this is for boys and this is for girls. Boys are this and girls are this. And it's more about feeling, it's more about empowerment. So if there's a speech where Mark Antony breaks down because his friend Caesar, has just been killed, that speech is just as powerful as when, when Calpurnius says, Caesar, why are you going? Didn't you hear that this is not good, And it's about relationships more so than I'm this gender, you're that gender, because as we know now, you can't assume gender of anyone.
Right.
And because you can't assume a gender of anyone, the fact that it's a construct that you just come and you go, here's a scene, play who you want to play, be who you want to be.
I think it really will help get that literature in. It'll get them excited about Shakespeare because that's what we do. So I appreciate that.
And I will say this to anybody listening, I use all the tricks, the lexicon for definitions. I use either Shakespeare Made Easy by Barron's, which is a yellow one, or not Spark Notes. I can't remember what it is now. There's another one, it's a blue one, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but they're like these dual texts. One is the Elizabethan English and one is modern English, and they're right next to each other. And so they can go, I don't know what this means, right? People who have done Shakespeare for decades still need the dictionary, still don't know what he's talking about sometimes. And we still might be wrong, because that's why there are scholars. That's why there are books and books and books, because we're still trying to figure out, is this what he meant? Is this what he was saying? Is this what he meant? And so what's great about that, it opens it up to us to be able to say, I think this is what he meant. And that's what's so great about doing it with youth, is that I've read Hamlet 52 times. And then somebody will come up and go, Hamlet was threatening the king. I'm like, Hamlet was what? No. Hamlet was trying to scare the king. Like, no, when he has this little puppet play or whatever, this player king, where the guy, he whispers over and he says, okay, this is the part where the nephew threatens the uncle. He's lightweight saying, I see you, right? And so the king doesn't get up and run out because he's busted. He gets up and runs out because it's like, oh, you can threaten me in my house? This is over. And I went, I didn't even see that. But if I'm living in a world where you have to really be aware that you are being threatened by somebody, I have a different perspective than you. And that's what's so wonderful about this. Every time I do a play or a scene, I'll be like, I didn't see that. Or you see this differently. Or this is what you think is going on. Okay, then do that. We got like 8 minutes. I want to make sure we acknowledge everybody. I'm not sure it's Tig or Tig, begging your pardon. Writing is a powerful tool in recovery or expression of self or pain. You don't have to be a writer to do this. It's so true. That is so true. There are so many students who think, I'm not a good writer, I'm not a good speller, okay, then just say it. We'll figure that out. I don't get in there, it's like, I'm not a grammarian. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about spelling. I'm not gonna worry about syntax. Did you get those words in the right order? Where's the period go? Why are there so many commas? It's not what I'm about. I'm about you looking at this and interpreting it or reinterpreting it, or like we saw in this wonderful documentary, using that as a springboard. All right, we're going to talk about loyalty, right? Are you loyal to me in this? Like, who's loyal to who in Hamlet, for example? Is there loyalty there? Are you being disloyal? And then you can springboard that off into your own life. I expect loyalty from these people in my life. So Curt has
Yeah,
put in the,
I had the good opportunity to work in a facility here in Western Michigan that was a co-gender. Now would be multi-gender facility. They had changed that, but so I had females and males, and I was also fortunate to be given the opportunity because of the trust to combine the two, and they never would do that. They always kept them separate. And so in my circle, it was like anyone that wanted to participate, whatever your gender, didn't make any difference, come sit in the circle. It was a great challenge. And sometimes I would meet just with the girls because sometimes the boys are too aggressive or too, they're and overpowering. And then the boys would say, when can the girls come back? And it's like, well, I get to talk about your behavior. When the girls are in the room, you're not listening. You're not practicing our agreements, which I posted 6 agreements that we work. That's our value system. They're not rules and regulations. They're values. So when they say, "Oh, Mr. Curt, we'll be better. We'll be better." Okay, that's all I can ask. We'll be better, and I'd get permission for the girls to come back in the room. And it just made being respectful to each other. And that's what we're also trying to build, and to listen carefully. And so that was a great joy to be, because usually they're isolated. I'm working in a primarily male facility, but sometimes given the opportunity to work in a female facility. And I learned so much from both that applied to both. And it's just made me more human and a better facilitator.
So Curt, we've got like 5 minutes, and I want you to be able to speak, but really briefly, so we can stay on time, about what you just put into the chat.
Yes. So they have enough rules and regulations to follow. And we don't break those rules and regulations. That's the institutional rule and regulation. But in the circle, we work on agreements, and we develop our value system. So these are 6 that have come up over years and years of distillation. So there's no fixing. I'm not there to fix them. I'm there to fix myself. And we all and only you can fix you. And we try to create space and opportunities for that to happen. Be present. And we're very fortunate in the opening discussion. Public schools wrestle with phones and distractions, and institutions don't. So there's an advantage with that, is that's been removed. So what does it mean to be present? Bring all of yourself to the circle. Non-judgmental listening, practice kindness, compassion, and empathy. See the reality of what is, not the illusion of what you wish it to be. So it's about practicing discernment, to be or not to be. As Keith said in his opening, it's about choices. It's about choices. And we have to help them understand that if they make that choice, there are consequences to that choice. Speak from I, never from we, collective we. I learned that by running the Kentucky Shakespeare Festival, when an actor would come in and say, "Curt, we're really unhappy." And I would look and say, "Well, I don't see we, I see you. So why don't you tell me what you're unhappy about?" No, we've talked about this and we're really unhappy. And I'm sorry. I said, "I'm sorry, but I don't accept we. So tell me what's going on with you." And then freedom from being wrong. Success. I as an artist, Keith as an artist, our success is built on our mountain of failures. And I try to instill that in them, not to be afraid of failing, not to be afraid of not being right or having the correct answer. The answer is about, what does this mean to you? What interests me in doing Shakespeare with this population? I know I've read the books. I've worked in professional theater with great professional actors, and I know what their opinion of Shakespeare is primarily going to be. I'm interested in, how does Shakespeare reflect in your life? How does it relate to you? And that's, as Keith pointed out, his own learning curve comes when somebody says, "No, I think Hamlet's, really intimidating the king, and it's like, oh, I thought about that. That's where the learning happens."
So with that last thing, and we have like 2 minutes. First of all, thank you all so much again for being part of this conversation. I was just saying to Mr. Bell, because in the chat, he was saying, sometimes we have to pull things out of folks. for me, literally being in the room is participation. You know, there's, like Curt said, it's invitation, and it's just, do you have an answer to this question? No? Great. Well, if you do, let me know. And so for some students, literally sitting there and listening to you is huge. And I honor that for sure. And then the other thing I wanted to say is both Curt and I have put our emails in the chat. And if you can get them, get them. And if you can't, I'm sure that Cindy or Katie can show them to you. If you have more questions, if you're interested more in the program. Curt, is there access to that documentary?
Yeah, I'll put the link in.
Okay.
It's also on our website, shakespearebehindbars.org, but I'll put it in for you.
So certainly if you have more questions, if you want to find out more about it, if you want to incorporate some of these things, like, well, I can't bring you, we don't have millions of dollars to bring you to our county. If you just want to call me, I love this. I love talking about this. If you just want to give me a holler or email me and say, I'd love to do this, how do I do it? It's not as hard as you think it is. Start with one play and say, we're just going to talk about this play. There's so many resources. You can get graphic novels of plays now, right? However you get them in, right? Show a movie, show an adaptation. There are millions of adaptations that don't say, you know, Hamlet. There'll be a different version, but it's like, oh wait, this is Hamlet. The Lion King is Hamlet. Show them The Lion King and then talk about that, you know? Thanks so very much. And we do want to stop on time. Curt, any last words?
No, again, we know in many ways we're speaking to the choir, because we're thankful for the work that you're doing, which creates space for us to come in and work with you. We're collaborators. We're very interested in expanding the network and connection. And Arts for All Kentucky is a brilliant organization that funds us not only in adult prison but in juvenile facilities. So we can help try to find funding too. So reach out to us. No question is a dumb question. And thank you for your work, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you both. And I would just like to say, before everyone leaves, that if you are really interested in this program, then KEXAC might be able to help with funding too. So please get a hold of us if that's what you are looking for. So we have a lunch break now for 30 minutes until 12:15. And again, we'd like to thank Keith and Curt. Thank you for being with us, and hope you have a great day.
Bye, everybody.